Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the September 16th, 2020 school committee meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. At this time, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss the ongoing collective bargaining with our employee groups and the strategies to be followed and/or any continued ongoing litigation. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to enter executive session. Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Atlas, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. The 4-0 vote, the motion carries, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the September 16th, 2020 school committee meeting at 6:01 p.m. Before we get started, I'd like to ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of Elaine Fisk, a Heathbrook teacher who taught there for 35 years and also volunteered when she retired. There is a scholarship being set up in her name, and anyone interested is asked to contact Pat Whitehouse at TMHS Guidance. Thank you. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Fisk family and their friends at this time. The September 16th, 2020 school committee meeting will be televised and recorded. This is a virtual meeting via WebEx due to the recent open meeting law policy set forth by the governor during the current state of emergency. The meeting will be held as a virtual meeting. To participate, please call 978-771-0819 and view live through televised cable channels, Comcast Channel 27 and Verizon Channel 34, or at YouTube. As a preliminary matter, my name is Keith Sullivan. I'm the chairman of the Tewksbury School Committee. Please permit me to confirm members and persons anticipated on the agenda here tonight are present, can hear me, and consent to be recorded. Mr. Cutlass?
Yes, I consent, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
I consent.
Thank you, Mr. Stadman.
I consent.
Thank you, Mr. Stadman. Unfortunately, Mrs. Demos is presenting at the school she's working at this evening, so she couldn't make it, and I give consent as well. Mr. Malone?
I consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Regan.
I consent.
Thank you, Mr. Libby.
I consent.
Principal Weir.
I consent.
Athletic Director Ron Druin.
I consent.
And I'm not sure, is Mike Gillespie on the call, Principal Weir?
I have not seen him on the call, but we've discussed this today, so I think I can speak for him.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. Tonight's open meeting is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive orders. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available by request. You can email Gail Johnson at gjohnson@tewksbury.k12.ma.us if you would like to get that material. And finally, because this is a remote meeting, all votes will be taken by a roll call vote. And members on the call, please remember to mute your computer or phone when not speaking. Thank you. We have no recognition or student report or presentations. That takes us directly to Citizens Forum. Courtney, do we have anyone on the line?
No.
Okay, I'll check back in afterwards. I'm going to go to Mr. Cutlass for our approval of the minutes for August, with our clerk being absent this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move the August 5th, 2020 joint workshop meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the August 5th, 2020 joint workshop. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote? Chair votes aye as well. Motion carried. Mr.
All right,
Cutlass?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the August 6th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the August 6th, 2020 special meeting. Mr. Cutlass, how?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well.
And I'll also move the August 19, 2020 school committee administrative workshop meeting minutes.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the August 19th special school committee administrative workshop. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. And finally, the August 19th regular meeting.
Yeah, I'll move the August 19, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the August 19th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go to Mr. Wilson for the submission and payment of bills this evening.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve payroll for period ending August 20th, 2020 in the amount of $1,136,519.52.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the payroll period ending August 20, 2020 in the amount of $1,136,519.52. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well.
I would also like to move that we approve the payroll for the period ending September 3rd, 2020 in the amount of $1,333,541.25.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the payroll period ending September 3rd, 2020 in the amount of $1,333,541.25. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I'd like to now turn it over to Mr. Malone for superintendent and staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask the committee to consider moving two items up on the agenda from old business. Item C, the 2021 John Middle School 8th grade Washington, D.C. overnight field trip. And from new business, item A, the Remote Learning Academy students' participation in athletics and co-curricular activities.
I'll make a motion that we move those two agenda items up to right now.
And I will second that.
Superintendent Malone, is this where you'd like me to?
Mr.
We're
Chairman.
just waiting for the chairman. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on a
thank
second.
you.
I got a little glitch here. Sorry.
That's okay.
I have a motion and a second to take those items out of order. Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. The floor is yours, Mr. Ware. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you. About a month ago, we brought forth with Mr. Gillespie's enthusiasm to continue the trip to DC, and he'd researched it and done some work to look at what we could do. But we're in a situation right now in this pandemic, and the governor still has not lifted any restrictions on has the restrictions on field trips. So with this DC trip, the runway now is pretty much come to an end where he would need to have this confirmation and this sort of support in a sense to go to DC in the spring. And with the current state of the situation with the pandemic, we don't see how that could continue, knowing that those kinds of field trips now cannot be seen as likely. So at this point, it would be unfeasible for him to try to be able to coordinate this trip based on the current pandemic situation.
Mr. Chairman, just to echo Mr. Ware's comments, certainly Mr. Gillespie put extensive efforts forward to include researching different companies to avoid any lost money to parents, all kinds of efforts and ideas. And the committee was certainly gracious enough to allow him to continue to plan when he originally presented the field trip application. However, the conditions both at the state level and nationally have not really changed. It certainly appears that Mr. Gillespie is at a crossroads where he either needs to begin to take in money and fully engage in planning this in somewhat of an uncertain times, or abandon this effort and look at possibly doing it next year. Again, Mr. Gillespie has just done an outstanding job, and if it was not for his efforts, I'm sure the committee wouldn't even have considered this trip up until this point. But certainly, Mr. Chairman, it would be my recommendation, since this trip was put forth for approval, the committee was gracious enough to allow some additional time to let Mr. Gillespie continue to look at it. It would be my recommendation, out of fairness to students and understanding the situation, that we not approve the Washington, D.C. trip for this upcoming year.
I'd like to open it up to my colleagues for any questions. I'll start with Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you to Mr. Gillespie. I know that he put in a tremendous amount of work, and you feel terrible that, something like this isn't going to happen. But I think based on the pandemic, I think the recommendation is right on. I don't think it's in our best interest to get kids' hopes up and start to try and plan this and put in all the time that it's going to take to make this happen, when the reality is we just don't know if it can happen. So thank you to Mr. Gillespie and team and John, and we can send our thank you through
Sure
you to
thing.
him, and just tell him we're sorry that it didn't work out, but hopefully we can get back on track next year.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Cutlass?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything Mr. Wilson said, and just want to send my thanks to Mr. Gillespie too for all his hard work.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stadman.
I just echo what Jamie and Scott have mentioned, and also with the dedication that Mr. Gillespie's had for the many years and many other trips that he's put on, and researching the alternate vendors, especially during this time, researching for possible refunds and things like that. We put him through quite a ringer for the approval this last time. Again, I want to thank him for that, and appreciate everything he's done. So with that, thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So what is the pleasure? Are you looking for a vote here, Mr. Malone?
I think because Mr. Gillespie went forward with an approval process and he was extended on that, it probably makes sense for the committee to take up a vote of whether he should continue on with that trip, or that it be rejected at this point, so that Mr. Gillespie has clear direction on where he can go from here.
Okay. Thank you. And what is the pleasure of the board at this time?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we postpone the Washington, D.C. trip for the 2021 year. I can't say that. For the year that's in front of us, that we postpone the trip.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to postpone the Wynn School 2020-2021 Washington, D.C. trip. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Much easier for you to say, Keith. Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. That's a unanimous vote. I would like to thank Mr. Gillespie. With so much going on, it would seem somewhat irresponsible, honestly, in my opinion as well, to whether get students' hopes up or deal with what we dealt with last year, where people put money out there and maybe they're not getting it all back. And certainly with the uncertainty of the pandemic, and quite honestly, uncertainty with all the political stuff that's going on down there at Washington as well. So I certainly hope this is going to be a 1 year only, that we can, maybe take a recess from it. And I hope he comes back the following year and we're back in school full time and we're able to authorize that trip for those students, because I think it's a wonderful opportunity for both them and our teachers. So.
Well, I truly appreciate your consideration, and I'll pass on your sentiments to Mr. Gillespie.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Mr.
Yield the
Chairman,
floor back.
the second item was from new business, Remote Learning Academy students' participation in athletics and co-curricular activities.
Yep.
And Mr. Druin is on the call with us as well. Just a background on this, Mr. Chairman. There has been a lot of discussion at the state level in regards to participation in interscholastic athletics and extracurricular activities, particularly at high school levels in relation to the pandemic. Some of the specific guidelines that have come out for the state are specific to those districts who are either totally operating in the remote model or forced to operate in the remote model because the metrics have changed and pushed them into remote setting. One piece that's been left out of there in state guidance is specific to districts in the hybrid model like ourselves in approximately 70% of the districts in the state. And that is in relation to if a district chooses the hybrid model as we have, students also have an option to choose a total remote option, what we refer to in Tewksbury as the Remote Learning Academy. And the question at hand is for students who choose the Remote Learning Academy in Tewksbury, will they be eligible to participate in interscholastic athletics in co-curricular activities as part of Tewksbury Public Schools? Typically, what we look at is attendance to school as a prerequisite for participating in these activities. I do think this is an extremely unusual circumstance in this pandemic. I think with students and families not participating in direct schooling for over 5 months, certainly we have a void with interaction with students, and certainly in a very safe manner, we want to promote any ability to have students interact with each other and adults in a productive manner. I do think the fact that students are enrolled in the Remote Learning Academy, they are being educated, their attendance is taken daily, they are graded. And my concern is the uncertainty of this pandemic, timing wise, as far as how long it may last or how long before we either as a district or a state move into either a total remote component or what we're all hoping for is everyone coming back to school all in every day, again, leaves a void in direction and certainty for many of our students. It would certainly be my recommendation that the committee consider allowing students who are in the Remote Learning Academy to participate in extracurricular activities in interscholastic athletics as a means by which to continually engage them in schooling in a very unusual situation, not of their doing, to promote that interaction, the social emotional learning of the students, the involvement of the students in the school system. That would certainly be my recommendation, but I'll hand it over to Mr. Druin to talk maybe a little bit about what this might look like for our students and what we can expect.
Thank you, Superintendent Malone. Speaking from my perspective, I second what Chris, and I know John Bernard does. We both feel like under these circumstances, it'd be difficult to tell those students who choose the Remote Learning Academy that they're ineligible to play. So hopefully that goes our way. I want to quickly thank School Committee Chair Sullivan. He came over and we had a little bit of a presentation regarding athletics. Superintendent Malone, Assistant Superintendent Regan, and our business manager, Dave Libby, have been nothing but supportive trying to get this off the ground. It's a very big task, if you guys can figure out with the guidance that's been provided. But we are going to have a 7-week season starting. The practice starts Friday. First week of games will be the first weekend in October, the 2nd and the 3rd. The first day we can play is the 2nd on a Friday, but generally we're going to play on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Both of those days, Wednesday, almost everybody's remote, so transportation for a lot of districts isn't an issue. Saturday, transportation's not an issue. So we chose to play, kind of model the prep school model and play on Wednesdays and Saturdays. You'll play the same opponent all week long. The first week we play Barica, so we'll play Barica in boys and girls soccer twice. We'll play them in cross country once. We'll play them in volleyball twice. We will play them in field. Barica doesn't have field hockey, but we play them in field hockey twice. So you play the same opponent twice during the week. Saturdays, we'd have access to practice facilities, and all our fields are lined. We're all ready to go. I've worked with Kelly Constantino quite a bit on how we're going to handle checks for our kids and all the different COVID policies that are in, and temperature checks and whatnot before games. So I feel like we have a real good handle there. Our coaches have sat in on numerous meetings. They're well aware. We've got them all the resources they need to handle social distancing. We work with the custodial staff. I've been in contact with Tewksbury Cable and the new huddle camera to show some of our events, as many as we possibly can. Any decisions that were made by the conference at the conference level were done using the guidance provided by the governor and EEA. I intend on having in-person meetings with each program next week to explain and hand out those guidances and our league policies and our contest policies, so they have an idea of how everything's going to work. So I feel confident where we are right now. I feel like the league has a good policy. We've contacted the media with our media requests and our media policy of what we're going to want them to do. Outdoor events will have spectators. Indoor events at this point, the governance doesn't allow for those, which is why we're going to use the cable company as much as we can. But I feel good about the direction athletics are in, and I am very appreciative of all the support. I think we all can agree that we have a passionate appetite in Tewksbury for athletics and extracurricular activities, and I couldn't be any more satisfied with the attention and support that you guys have provided me in resources to try to get this off the ground. So if anybody needs more, we have a handout that we provided the chair with. But if anybody has questions, feel free to contact me through email. I can set up a call or an email with you guys and walk you through what's going on. But that's a quick snapshot of how we're going to operate.
Thank you, Mr. Drouin. I'm just going to open it up to my colleagues. Thank you for all your hard work. Obviously, your recommendation as well. I think you and I have already had this conversation, and I feel the same way. Certainly, all kids should be able to participate not only in sports but extracurricular activities. So, with that being said, I'm going to open it up to Mr. Cutlass if he has any questions, comments.
Jamie, I think you're on mute.
No, thank you, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Drouin. Nope, I just want to thank Mr. Drouin for all his hard work. It must have been a tremendous project, and it was a good outcome, and I fully support the recommendation.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Just, and I'm sure that, Chief, you may already have this, but Ronnie, you mentioned protocols, testing protocols, temperature check, that type of stuff. I assume if someone doesn't make it through the protocols, they just go home and then they go into the school protocols for that stuff.
Yeah, we on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, they wouldn't be allowed in our building if they were sick. So on a Wednesday where they're remote, and on a Saturday where we're not in school, we have to do some self-checking in order to, cover us on our end and make sure that we're sending healthy opponents out against, just like the other school, our opponents are going to do. We got to make sure we're checking our kids to make sure that we're not putting, potentially infected student athletes out there. So those, basic checks with temperature checks would cover us quite a bit.
Okay, awesome. That was my only thought in terms of the remote, but I would agree with everything that's been said so far. I mean, getting these kids back to some normalcy in a year that's going to look very different, I think is really important. So, Ronnie, thank you for all your work on this, and to the superintendent and Brenda and Dave for your support of Ronnie when it comes to this. I think it's I think it's invaluable for the kids to have this outlet in their lives. So thank you.
But yeah, I appreciate where you're going there, and I get it. I'm on those DLTs with Chris, Brenda, and Dave, and they got so many balls in the air, and at times athletics isn't maybe the highest ball that they're throwing up in the air, but they've found time to carve out and make it work for me. So again, I'm super appreciative of that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stadman, do you have anything?
On the just to and the vote here as far as the the RLA students, what as far as the gravity of the this vote, what is the population that we're talking about here? When I appreciate that all the work that that coach that you've put into this as far as safeguards with the kids and testing and things like that, but to bring it back to civic vote, are we talking 10% of the percentage of kids? Are we talking 5% of exclusions if this gets?
John, why don't we? I'll yield the floor to Mr. Malone. The only number I know right now is 17% of our students. That's throughout the district are in the remote learning academy. I'm not sure if he has a breakout of just high school specific, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Malone. He may have that information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're 100% right. It's 17% across the district have chosen Remote Learn Academy. We have some parent inquiries. The signups aren't final as far as the athletics goes. It's probably not a large number in athletics. It's probably a very large number in extracurricular activities since kids do a lot of multiple things. But I'm glad you asked kind of the scope of the vote. I think the vote would be specific to the fact of while we're in the hybrid model, because that's when we have the dichotomy of students in a hybrid model and students in a remote learning academy. That dynamic changes likely if we shift models. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I would say this vote would cover students who are participating in the remote learning academy while in the hybrid model. And if it could be up to the committee as well, we could narrow this vote down to fall athletics and extracurricular if you want.
Yeah, because that was one of my questions. Superintendent Malone. When we were discussing this during our policy reviews, with the RLA, I don't want to set a precedent. I understand COVID is a new time. And if we open this door and we just say, this vote goes in the general wording that it is, it could possibly come back, let's say 4 years from now when this is a completely different board, and basically say that, hey, during COVID, RLA students were allowed to go into athletics and extracurricular. And again, if we fast forward 4 years, 6 years down the road from now, and there was a huge flu season that comes by, and then RLA students get a huge inrush of students. I don't know if they could do some additional wording into it. Just yielding the floor to chair. There's an additional wording we can put into this. During COVID time or during hybrid time or things like that. I don't know exactly what the motion on the floor is right now. I apologize because I'm actually doing a build out here at work, so I don't have the wording specific for the motion. So,
well, there's no motion on the floor as of now, Mr. Stadman.
Well, no, just what we're voting on, like that. That's just the one thing that my concern of, like, opening the precedents.
Right, Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Stadman is making a great point. In my suggestion or my recommendation, that the committee consider their vote specific to remote learning academy students while in the hybrid model for the fall athletic and co-curricular activities season.
Okay, and I assume obviously, that means Mr. Druin or whoever's going to have to come back in the winter, in the spring, and then the possible. I'm just not sure, if we're,
right. Some of the co-curriculars do go across timelines.
Sure.
that differ sports seasons. So,
Right. How does drama work? Can you lay drama out for me? Is that within a season? I'm not looking.
maybe, right.
Drama in a normal situation, drama would kind of spread from winter to spring.
Okay.
So that
Maybe
would cover a couple seasons.
Some of the extracurricular and co-curricular activities have very specific guidelines from DESE, different than athletics. Some of them are actually far more restrictive than athletics. So and we could either look at a dual vote for athletics for the fall season and co-curricular and extracurricular activities, say till December 31st or something like that.
Okay. Could I ask? I'd like to ask my colleagues. Does it make sense, maybe to just approve it for the year? And I'll start with Mr. Wilson.
I mean, I think it's simpler for the year, and I think that if we need to make an adjustment, we can always have a meeting and take a vote and make a change. But as long as we're in Corona time, and I feel like we're going to be in Corona time for most of the year, I think we should try and simplify it so that parents are dealing with a lot of anxiety with their students, and I think the more structure we can give it and the more consistency, guidance, I think it's just going to make it easier for them to know, you know what, my kid can do the remote and they can still play their sport, and that's their favorite thing to do. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Cutlass?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Wilson. I think that's a good idea. We should make it for the whole year so that if we need to, we can adjust it and revisit it. But as long as we're in COVID and we're in the hybrid, I think we should make it for the whole year.
Okay. And I'll circle back with Mr. Stadman.
Yeah,
Mr.
no, that's
Stadman?
COVID hybrid. That's fine.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we allow our Remote Learning Academy students to participate in, I'm going to just say, all extracurricular activities, which could be sports, drama, whatever falls into that bucket for the school year.
during the hybrid model.
During the hybrid model.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to allow all Remote Learning Academy students to participate in all extracurricular activities for the school year 2020-2021 while we're during the hybrid model. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Druin, for your time. And certainly sports is something I know that a lot of us on the committee hold dear to us, as do we all our extracurriculars. So, hopefully this will be a positive thing. And we look forward to having to watch the kids on the TV. That's fine. Maybe they'll feel like they're in the NFL or the NBA or something, and then that's okay too. But we certainly wish you all the best. We have wonderful student athletes, so we look forward to the upcoming scholastic year for all of our athletes. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time. For all you guys do for the kids of Tewksbury. Scotty, you let me down. I thought you were going to try to tackle 2020, 2021 again during that motion. You kind of
No way.
See you guys later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Moving back to Mr. Malone for the rest of his. Actually, you know what? Let me just check in with Courtney, Superintendent Malone, see if we have any callers. Courtney, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. We have no calls.
Okay, thank you very much. Yield back to Mr. Malone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And certainly from the superintendent's report, this is a milestone day. This was opening day for students in Tewksbury. Feels like a long time getting there. Today was certainly a Wednesday, and part of our hybrid model is a full remote day. Certainly from what we saw from staff out in the school buildings and heard from parents at home, there was a lot of great instruction going on today. Certainly we will have technology blips and trying to work with parents and students while they're in their home. We'll have some roadblocks there, but we've worked through most of them today. Tomorrow begins the first day of our in-person portion of the hybrid model for Thursday and Friday. We're really looking forward to that. Our teachers are very excited about that, to see the students. Certainly there's a great deal of still unknown out there around this pandemic and how many of these things will kind of wash themselves out. But a huge thank you to all of you on the committee for your support in us developing this hybrid plan. A huge thank you to the administrative staff, principals, Ms. Regan, Mr. Libby, all the administrators in the district who have put in significant work trying to make sure we have all the planning done for students to return safely to school. And a big thank you to all our teachers, all our aides, custodians, secretaries, Delta T aides, cafeteria workers, central office staff, non-union personnel. They have just worked night and day to try to make this happen. The buildings look great if you've had a chance to see them. The custodians have done a great job cleaning them. They're committed to doing a great job continually cleaning them. So we're really looking forward to the rest of this week, and today was a great start. Once again, a thank you to the Tewksbury Teachers Association, who we reached with a memorandum of agreement last week and has been executed. And certainly appreciate the teachers and staff working diligently to make this opening happen. Parents have been very involved and asked a lot of great questions and had some great ideas and provided some great input. We put out our plan to parents in mid-August, and we've got some great feedback and great ideas on how to make sure that works well. We've certainly, in the past few days and really the past few weeks, bombarded parents with a great deal of communication. We appreciate their patience, their understanding, and the fact that they really look at this communication and ask great questions. Really helps us do our thinking at the school level so we can make sure we have the best environment for students possible. Alphabet, our vendor in regards to before and after school care for students, will be operating. They'll be operating before school care at all of our K4 schools and the Ryan Elementary School. They'll be also offering after school care at an off-site location, and they'll be offering actually full day care for students who are remote on given days at their off-site location. We'll also be able to, Mr. Libby has worked with Tewksbury Trans, and we are working in a program where we can actually transport students to that location from our schools daily. So Alphabet has taken on a big commitment here in working with the families of Tewksbury. We appreciate their help. They'll need a lot of our support and a lot of help, a lot of our understanding, operating out of a new location. And they have committed to all the safety protocols and pieces that go in with that. But thank you to them for taking this on. Our community services preschool will be operating out of the Heathbrook Elementary School on a mirrored schedule of a hybrid model that we have taken on as a district. It's not a large number of hours at the preschool level, but it is at least an introduction for those 3 and 4 year olds to have a school experience and work with their peers and be provided some preschool instruction. So we're happy to get that off the ground. We're also very happy to report that working with the staff and the Tewksbury Teachers Association, that we have been able to ensure that all students who are enrolled in the Remote Learning Academy will be taught by Tewksbury Public Schools teachers. We were able to look at those staff members who needed accommodations and work with staff members who are, in some of our peripheral instructional areas, specialists and others, to really help us out on this. Sometimes those are not going to be direct alignments with content specific teachers, but they will be remote learning academy students will be taught by Tewksbury Public Schools teachers aligned to the Tewksbury Public Schools curriculum. So we're very happy to report that. John Marchand's maintenance team and all the building custodians have been working very hard, as I said, to clean the buildings. They have developed significant protocols both during the day while students are there and enhanced cleaning on Wednesdays and on the weekends when the cohorts change over. So we're very proud of that. They've also continued to conduct flushing operations in all the buildings, and specific to the plumbing, due to the fact that the plumbing really hadn't been used to a level of student use since last March. So they've completed that aspect. We continue to work with the Tewksbury Fire Department. We have some modified fire drills that we've worked with the Tewksbury Fire Department, so that we will be conducting fire drills and Alice drills. They will be modified to ensure social distancing. But what we want to make sure is our students are very clear what to do in an emergency and how to operate in those situations. We've also put out to staff and families a reminder around the Massachusetts travel order that travel outside the state of Massachusetts and outside of New England, to exclude Rhode Island, does require a 14-day quarantine or a negative COVID-19 test. Some of those states continue to change. Currently, New York and New Jersey are okay to travel to in that order, but some of these states have their own travel orders that people have to be a little bit concerned about. But that is something that we're asking parents to be very careful with as they look at their weekend travel or vacation travel. And our staff have been very good about letting us know when they've run into that situation. We'll also continue to work with the local Board of Health and our own lead nurse, Kelly Constantino, in regards to the flu vaccine order, to encourage parents to make sure their children are getting the flu vaccine. We'll also work with our staff to see if there's ways we might be able to make it easier for them to also get the flu vaccine. But right now, the DES order is specific to students. So we'll make sure that we are enforcing that and see where we can be helpful to parents to make sure that that gets done. A big thank you to Mr. Montori at the town as we continue to look at ways to offset some of these budgetary issues. But working with the town, we received a $68,000 grant to improve the LED lighting at the Heathbrook Elementary School, and we continue to look at ways that we can work to improve the schools, particularly our older schools, as we go through this whole process. Just a reminder to parents out there that if they attend the Trahan Elementary School, there is some long-term road work right there on Salem Road. I once again thank you to Mr. Montori and Tewksbury DPW, because there's some pretty extensive road work going there, but they have assured us that they will work with us to make sure parent drop-off and bus drop-off and pickup will go smoothly at that location, and the Tewksbury Police Department will be helping out on as well. But a lot of work has gone into this day. A big thank you to everyone involved. We have a great deal of work ahead of us. I think we can all anticipate that we will have bumps in the road. I think we can all anticipate that likely in a town our size, we will have positive cases, and how we can respond to that and work together and follow our protocols to keep everyone safe. We'll tell our story. We're very proud of the teachers' work that they've done to prepare for this year, and we look forward to our teachers providing outstanding instruction for all of our students, no matter if they're in the hybrid model, in person on a given day, at home on a remote day, or in the Remote Learning Academy. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Regan.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. I'm just checking with my colleagues prior. Mr. Cutlass, any questions or comments or concerns?
No, Mr. Sullivan, I'd just like to thank Mr. Malone and Mrs. Regan and Mr. Libby for the tremendous effort that they've made over the past 5 months. I know they've worked day and night to get everything ready for.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I'll just echo what Jamie said. I mean, you can't, people have no idea how hard the team has worked to make this happen. And I know that there are bumps in the road today. That's part of what's going to happen. We just need to keep our heads up and know that we have a team that's going to work really hard to make everything as good as it can possibly be. And we'll just keep on getting better at it. I mean, this is all new to us. So thank you for all your efforts. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And Mr. Stabman?
I concur with the colleagues. I mean, it is what it is, and I appreciate all the efforts with it for everybody. So
Great. Thank you. I agree as well. And I'll turn it over to Mrs. Regan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share my screen because the most important communications that we have sent home to families have been uploaded to our website. So I want to just walk through where they are as I present them, okay? So,
Great. Thanks.
yeah, let me share. And, all right, I'm hoping that Courtney and Jason are still there to help me with this. If it doesn't go well, looks like we're good. Okay, let's start. What you should be seeing right now is the homepage of the Tewksbury Public Schools website. And the first communication that I'd like to remind parents of is probably the most important. I mean, obviously, the most important thing that we all look forward to are healthy students and families. And we provided families with a notice right here on the webpage, our expectations for COVID screening at home. So let me open that up for us. And parents can see the link right here. And what we're really asking parents, their assistance here is to do wellness checks and screenings of their students before even getting ready to come to school that day. What would they be looking for? There are a list of COVID-19 symptoms that parents should be on the lookout for, and screening their child daily before coming to school. And we're asking the parents, please keep their child home if they're exhibiting any of these symptoms that may be COVID related. If students are staying home for the day, they certainly can access their class remotely. So if it's a Thursday or a Friday, for example, and it's an in-person day for a B cohort student, but they need to stay home and follow some steps to see the fact that they're not experiencing the COVID virus, then they can access their class remotely. I'm going to talk about the masks and our initial mask protocol in a minute, but we also ask that parents follow the procedures for safe drop-off and pickup at school as their principals are sharing with them. And above all, be sure that the school has the most up-to-date contact information in the event that the school nurse or the school has to contact a parent. And go back to the website. And the next thing I'd like to talk about, while not uploaded to the website right yet, are some documents that the nurses, and a big shout out to Kelly Constantino, our lead nurse, and her team, because they have been developing these documents that are going to help us all stay healthy and well. So if a student is dismissed from school due to illness, again, the school nurse is going to help determine if these are COVID-like symptoms. Again, they're listed, and then give the parent some instructions as to what to do next. This is different than coming back to school. Remember, we have a step 2 comprehensive plan that talks about that flow chart. If a student is exhibiting symptoms that may be related to COVID, there are steps that a parent needs to take. The steps would be the same for staff members as well. but I wanted to show parents, they will receive this document upon picking their child up, and it will be emailed as well. We know that often when you're hearing this information, parents may exhibit anxiety, may forget what they're told, so we'll make sure to communicate it for a second time. Likewise, if a student is called in sick, the school nurse and the school secretary, they'll develop that list of students that have been called in sick, and they'll share another notice with families about what to do, when to call, if these symptoms are being exhibited at home, how to contact the primary care physician. And what we've also listed on the back of this form are those protocols that we've identified in our step 2 plan. So if a student is symptomatic, you know, and what they should do, contact the pediatrician. If the MD determines that a test is not, they return to school when they're asymptomatic for 24 hours with written documentation. Often this is a telehealth call. Again, our school nurse will help parents walk through what to do in the event of a student being ill. I'll go back to the website because the next important document we've shared with families, sorry about that, let me move forward. Right on the home page is our initial mask protocol and guidance. So we know what to do in the event that a student has maybe symptoms, but how do we keep from spreading symptoms at school or spreading the virus at school? We know that all students and staff need to wear a mask, not only while in the school building, while on school grounds, while at the bus stop, on the bus, wherever a school-related event is. And we ask that masks are either disposable or reusable, and if they're reusable, that they are cleaned regularly, and that they cover the nose and the mouth under the chin, that they're tightly fit to the face, and that they're made of, if they're a reusable, washable, 2 layers of breathable material. We've sent home the video, the link to the video, to help parents identify whether the mask is an effective mask or not. It's simple. And this one shows a birthday candle where if a student or an adult can blow out the flame through the mask is not appropriate, it's not effective for school. Another way, if parents are uncomfortable with trying blowing out the birthday candle with the young children, they can simply, if a child can blow a piece of paper off the table while wearing the mask, and the guidance is pretty specific about a face mask, then the mask is not effective. All student masks should be provided by the student's family. We'll assist a student if they should come to school without a mask or the mask breaks with a disposable mask. I wanted to point out to families that may be watching, we are going to work with students to support them. This is definitely a way that we can support their social emotional learning and their competencies around health and safety practices. In fact, thank you to Mr. Libby, we have lanyards to hold on to all kindergarten through grade 4 masks. What does that mean? Much like eyeglass lanyards, students managing another thing, right, it is difficult for our youngest students. So we know when we take a mask break, we don't want them putting the mask down or dropping it onto the floor. So we have these lanyards. They can safely take the mask or doff the mask, it's called, doffing it, and let it fall. It will not fall to the floor or onto the desk because of the lanyard. As I said, we know we're going to have to help students while they wear masks all throughout the school day, and relationship building, and how do you see or gauge somebody's emotions when you can't see their face. So this is a big learning curve for all of our young ones, and certainly our staff is there to support our kiddos wearing masks at school. There is a therapeutic and progressive approach with students that may have difficulty wearing masks, and certainly our teachers and our school nurse will dial in the parent if we need their support as well. So again, right on the home page, parents can find 2 most important communications, the COVID screening practices at home, as well as the initial mask protocols. The next item I'd like to just bring to people's attention is, because a big portion of coming back to school this year is remote learning. We've just redeveloped our Tewksbury Public School remote learning website and now focus on digital learning supports for our families. When you open up this page, and let me just move us out of the way here, you can see the 3 top tabs are around using the resource, taking care of a Chromebook, borrowed a Chromebook, and how to request borrowing a device. So just want to show parents a little bit if they're watching. It first starts with how to use the Chromebook, how to access those Google apps that we'll be using here, Google Classroom. Okay, so parents can see those supports. And again, if parents still are to borrow a device for their child while doing remote learning at home, they can use the form provided on this webpage. At this time, we've readied and deployed approximately 1,000 devices to our students. We ask for parents' patience at this time. Our IT team has been amazing. They've been out at every school today supporting our schools as the schools go live and remote at the same time. And they are very busy and very supportive. So they're there for parents. All right. The next place I'd like to just show parents really quick is our grab and go lunch program and our curbside pickup. So what do parents need to know can be found right here under our food and nutrition services tab. There's an FAQ page. I'm not going to read all of this. I just want to tell parents and the committee great news. The USDA has extended funding for our kids to receive healthy food at school through December 31st or until the funds run out, whichever comes first. So breakfast and lunch will be offered free of charge to every student of the Tewksbury Public Schools while in school. Each of our students will have access to breakfast and lunch meals daily as grab and go. Upon dismissal, I need to stress, though, that these meals are not intended to be eaten during the school day, nor on the bus. The grab and go and breakfast that students are taking home are for consumption at home. Curbside meal pickup is also explained on this page, where curbside pickup should occur for the remote learning days and our remote learning academy students. So those pickup times are listed. Please be sure to visit the food service web page for that information. And then finally, it's going to be interesting, right? This new year, keeping track of the calendar, when certain days are occurring. I need to draw everybody's attention to our dynamic district calendar, where you can see that Ms. Johnson has put onto the calendar, whether it's a cohort B day, a cohort A day. We'll continue to do that as long as we're in the hybrid model. Parents may not know that they can filter this calendar and particularly pick a school calendar to see as well. So you can see that I have checked the district calendar and the high school rotating day calendar. Why is that important? For parents with students at the high school, they are still following their waterfall schedule. So you can see day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 waterfalls throughout every week. So while a cohort B student is live tomorrow, they're following day 1 at the high school. Cohort A students are following day 1 remotely at home, and so on. And if we look at the static school calendar that you have voted and approved on, the first page shows all of those dates for our school days as well as our holidays. But I really want to draw parents' attention to the back of this calendar because we also voted to amend the open house schedule. Why is this important? Next week begins our open house week, and it will all be virtual for parents. So open house starts for elementary grades 3 and 4 next Monday. Again, this will be a remote open house where parents will virtually engage in information sessions with the teacher. They will assist the parents in knowing that need to know information, support their student or their child throughout the school year. I just want to make note, Remote Learning Academy teachers will also be hosting their open house for parents, so they have all the necessary information they need as well. So this calendar is on our website. There's 2 types of calendars, the full school year and then the dynamic calendar that you can see events for each of our schools. Finally, I want to show parents and remind students it is not too late to complete your summer reading. Teachers will be looking to collect this within the next couple of weeks. So over this weekend and the next few days, please remember you can find summer reading under the resources tab and complete that. And then in closing, I just really want to remind all of our parents and students to, let me stop sharing my screen. Please be patient with us as we enter this new school year in a very different way. Teaching and learning is going to look very different. Your teachers and your schools will be very patient with you. I can promise you that. Don't hesitate to contact your teachers or your principal or us if you have or need assistance or any information. We're so happy to have all of you coming back, and we wish you all a safe, healthy, and enriching 2021 school year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Regan. I'd now like to turn it over to Mr. Libby, our business manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a brief update on the transportation department, handled here out of our business office. We had faced some new challenges this year with the limited capacity of our school buses to 25 students. Normally we'd be running around anywhere upwards of 55 on a bus at the younger grade levels, and this year we're limited to 25 students, one per seat, with assigned seats. So that's been quite challenging. Our friends at Tewksbury Transit volunteered to help me with the assignment of seats over the past few days. It's a decision that Andy's regretted ever since he volunteered to do that for us, because it's been, dealing with all the changes and it's much more complicated when you have assigned seats for every student. So thanks to them for helping us out with that. But we've got the seat assignments posted to our student portal in Aspen for every student that responded to the survey that they needed transportation to school. Been fielding a lot of calls and emails from folks who, have now decided they want to try the bus, or circumstances have changed since they did the survey. We do have the capacity on the bus to handle those students in most situations, but we're just asking for parents to give us a week or two till things kind of settle down. And the parents I've been talking to with these types of requests have been great, and have been willing to drive their student for the first couple days till we can get a bus schedule worked out and communicated to all the folks that need to know how the child will be getting to and from school every day. So that's worked out very well. Again, parents have been very patient and helping us out with that aspect of making those changes. Not something we needed a week for in the past. When you just add in a bus stop, it was a lot simpler before we had assigned seats and limited bus capacity. So people are very understanding that it's taken a little more time and willing to work with us on that. So thanks to the folks at Tewksbury Transit. They handle our big yellow school buses and vans. Drivers have been out running their routes, dry runs. They've been doing them, timing the routes and doing them in real time, and giving us some feedback on how the routes are going to run, which is a nice preview of how things should work tomorrow. And they've been doing a lot of driver training on safety and the protocols that we've put in place regarding mask wearing. So they've been doing that with their drivers over the past couple of days and doing a great job getting those folks ready to roll. Another thank you to our contractors at Trombley, Motor Coach and Pride Star. They handle our out-of-district student transportation. That's proven extremely more complicated than normal due to the number of varied schedules and plans that are going on in our out-of-district schools. And they've been very cooperative and flexible in getting those students scheduled into our out-of-district school placements as well. And lastly, I'd like to just say a thank you to our central office staff here. Beginning of year is crazy to begin with. And this year, you know, with all the added PPE we're purchasing, different supplies that we normally don't have to deal with. And our staff were shorthanded here in the business office, and everybody's just stepping up. I'm seeing people responding to emails, nights, weekends, all different times. I'm running out saying we need some more face masks, and I got 3 people raising their hand, looking around on the internet, trying to find a place that can supply us with face masks in a day. So it's been really, really good from a team perspective here in the business office, and just wanted to say I appreciate all the extra work that folks are doing to support the startup of school. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Mr. I'm just going to check colleagues. Mr. Cutlass, question?
No, I'm up, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Wilson.
No questions, and just thanks, Mr. Libby, for just all the work with the schedules. I know it's probably been, with all of it, has probably been a daunting task. So thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Stadman?
Nothing on my end. Again, appreciate everything you guys have been doing. I can imagine your transportation is a total nightmare and a mess, especially nowadays with the new regulations and the cleaning and everything else you guys have been going through, and all the off-hour calls. So it's definitely appreciated from this end, and obviously from a parent of a junior coming into the school tomorrow. So definitely appreciate it. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stadman, and thank you as well, Mr. Libby. That gets us to tonight's consent agenda. Do any one of my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? Mr. Cutlass, do you have any?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm all set. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Wilson.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Great, Mr. Stadman.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Great, what's the pleasure of the board at this time regarding tonight's consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
All right. I'll second that. I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda in its entirety. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Yeah, votes aye as well. That's a unanimous vote. Moving on to the committee reports. Very excited, Mr. Cutlass, to hear your update. I was at the central office the other day and was very fortunate to be able to walk the grounds of the new elementary school. Seen some foundations, some footings in there. Very exciting. So I'm looking forward to your report. It looks great over there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we did walk it the other day as well with site manager, project manager, Peter Collins. He said they basically took out 40,000 cubic feet of unsuitable soil and replaced it with compacted soil to put the foundations on. And as you noted, Mr. Chair, the foundations are done for the field house and the concession stand and for a portion of the school. And they're getting ready to complete the entire foundation for the whole school. So contractor Consigli's been working diligently, fully staffed the project. They're there every day. They're even there on Saturdays, and they're doing a great job right now. And as you noted, it's a 23-acre site. It's an extremely large site, and they've cleared it entirely, and they're making good progress on it. So we're very happy with them to date. We're still under budget, and that's a good thing, and we're still on time for our projected opening, and that's a good thing as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my report.
Great. Wonderful news to hear that we're on time and on budget. The Tewksbury Education, that's myself as of now. I have no new update. We haven't had a meeting. The Tewksbury CPAC, Mr. Wilson, do you have an update?
I'll just say that there was a productive meeting last week with the parents. Mr. Pelletier did a tremendous job. I unfortunately was not able to attend, but I did get some good feedback on that. And I know that we're going to have some, meetings coming up, and there's going to be a lot going on there. So, obviously, we want to support those students as best we can.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And the Wellness Advisory Committee, Mr. Stadman?
I have no updates as of tonight, sir.
Okay. Moving right along, Mr. Stadman, I'm not sure, do we have any policy changes, proposals, or adoptions for this evening?
We have nothing for this evening, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go to old business, our opening day, and I'll yield the floor to Mr. Malone.
I think I'll take this one there, Mr. Chairman. What I've provided for you is our day 1 and 2 welcome back for our entire staff. This year was unlike any other, where we were live streaming while everybody was remote. It didn't go without some of the traditional events, like honoring our staff who are retiring or those who served 20 plus years. But you can see the topics in day 1 and day 2. The focus was on health and safety and civil rights and special ed law review. Day 2 really focused on the logistics as in our new normal of coming back to school under our COVID-19 school reopening plan. I thought it was important that the committee and parents saw the 10-day reopening training plan that all of our staff, our aides, and our administrative team encountered, and all of the topics. So this is how our staff have been preparing for the past 10 days to ready themselves to accept students. This is informational only. No vote is required on both of these documents.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving right along. That takes us to the new business. We already had Washington, the Remote Academy. Turn it over to Mr. Malone for the Win Pack Snap fundraiser.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. After some further conversations looking at this proposal, Mr. Weir has removed and withdrawn this fundraising application in regards to the Win Pack. So there is no information and no action required.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Malone. That'll take us to September's enrollment.
Right, Mr. Chair. Just as continue to look as again, we've tried to focus on hybrid model, remote learning academy students. It certainly has an effect to make us look a little bit differently and a little bit more in depth on the data on enrollment. But some items to think about, we're still following the very slow downward trend in overall enrollment with 3,247. But we continue to grow at the Dewing Elementary School, particularly with pre-K and kindergarten numbers still going up, and still trying to manage some of those. And that has begun to affect slowly class size at the North Street Elementary School. The lower blips of classes were kind of in the middle of at Tewksbury Memorial High School. These were some low number classes we have watched progress through the system. And one is the senior class at the high school right now, but the current 9th and 10th grade classes are numbers that were kind of lower as they progress through. As you can see, the numbers increase at the grade levels as we go further on back. So nothing dynamic. What we've really looked at is how to make those cohorts manageable in the class sizes during the hybrid model to ensure that we have 6 feet distance between students while they're in the classroom. And we've been able to accomplish that, and we're very, very proud of that.
Okay, great. I'm just going to open it up quick to my colleagues if they have any questions or comments regarding the enrollment. I'll start with Mr. Cutlass.
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Wilson?
All set.
Mr. Stadman?
No questions at this time.
Okay, moving on to school committee matters of interest. I'll start with you, Mr. Stadman.
I just want to say thanks again to all of the staff during these times. Obviously, the instructors, the aides, teachers, assistant superintendent, obviously superintendents, as well as our chair that's been deeply involved with the negotiations, as well as everybody else that's been involved. Obviously, these are, everyone said it, these are different times. As students are going back, I make sure that everyone is taking everything with, certain precautions, and, as you're putting stress on the IT systems, I feel it at work, and, take a breath before you smack your computer around, and, you're there to learn and get along with others, and, let's get this year off to a good start. It seems like we're off to a good start, so let's keep it going.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stadman. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I'll just say my 2020 word has been patience. And I think that as you guys negotiated, I think you showed tremendous patience and understanding. And I know that, you felt a lot of pressure from a lot of different directions in terms of, let's get this done. We need to be able to give all the plans. And unfortunately, that's just not how it works. We got to take the time to talk and do the right thing. And I just so appreciate all the time that you guys put into it. You guys, I can't even fathom the hours spent. But I encourage the parents to keep patience in their mind as we start the school year, because there are going to be hiccups. There are going to be challenges, and we're going to do everything we can to listen and try and be understanding of what the issues are and try and get to good, reasonable resolutions. So just thank you to all of you for all your hard work. It's been an interesting 6 months, and I'm looking forward to us moving into the school year and sort of getting back to the students, which is really what's the most important thing that we do. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Cutlass?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank everybody as well, Mr. Malone, Mrs. Reagan, Mrs. Libby, especially you, Mr. Chair, for all the tremendous amount of hours you spent negotiating the MOA with the teachers union. It wasn't an easy thing, and I know you spent countless hours doing that, and I really appreciate that, and I want to thank you very much for your efforts in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cutlass. I'd be remiss if I didn't add thanking our parents and families, as everyone spoke about tonight, for their patience, understanding, and most importantly, their input. Certainly, it hasn't been an easy road. We have acknowledged very early on that we wanted to work with the union. We did that. We needed buy-in with the union, and I can't thank the union enough, quite honestly. They came to the table. They put our children first. Might have been, a longer road than a lot of people wanted to go down. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to have some safe, happy, and healthy teachers. I think it was ratified over 90%, that MOA. So, that's only going to create a better environment for all of our students. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. We've had preliminary talks. We're meeting next Thursday. There's movement we can make within the hybrid. We're still focused on, how we can get from maybe 4 hours to 6 hours, but we got to get in first. We got to manage. We got to mitigate, like other institutions have been doing, like other corporations have. And, we're all in agreement. We're all on the same page that what's best for students is in-person quality instruction, and we're going to take our time to get there. But like I said, I'm just going to reiterate that I ask that you continue to have patience and understanding, and the teachers are committed to getting there. We're committed to getting there. We're committed to working. Unfortunately, if we have a case or two, we have a good place. where we're going to be able to do what we need to do and keep kids educated, whether it's, in person or remotely. So I just, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank those teachers. They put in just as much as hard work as myself and Mr. Malone and Mrs. Regan, and I want to make sure that the community knows that. So with that, that takes us to future school committee and subcommittee meetings. On October 6th, 2020, we will be appearing at our special town meeting. And then our next regular school committee meeting is scheduled for October 14th, 2020, and the November meeting, November 18th, 2020, and our December meeting, December 9th, 2020. With that, I'm going to start with Mr. Cutlass for any possible future agenda items.
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Wilson?
I have nothing.
Okay, Mr. Stadman?
I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. With that, I'll turn to Mr. Cutlass.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's school committee meeting. Mr. Cutlass, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Stadman, how do you vote?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. That's a unanimous vote. The meeting is now concluded. Thank you for attending and have a good night.
All right, thank you.